Hey everyone, it's Sherry with Squatchable, and the report that we're going to talk about today is one where it looks like an adult Bigfoot decided to use a diversionary display to distract sightseers from a young Bigfoot. Hey everyone, today we're talking about BFRO report number 4779. It's a Class A sighting. And this is about a large animal that lured some men away from a possible younger animal near Mount St. Helens. This is a really interesting story, and for where it's at, there's been a lot of sightings. This sighting took place in Skamania County, Washington. This area has had many sightings. We have over 41 sightings listed on there, and 15 of those are Class A sightings, where it's pretty much they saw what they saw. So this was a family, 3 brothers and 1 uncle. They were out touring the Mount St. Helens blast area, visiting some vista points along the way. They were out in this area. It looks like they may have been wanting to revisit a site that their uncle had had a sighting for based on the wording, but it does not definitively say that. The witness who wrote the report said that his uncle had found footprints back in the 60s, and from the wording of the report, they may have been trying to revisit the area that the footprint had been found before, but the wording is kind of ambiguous, so that may not be correct, but that's what it sounds like they were out there doing. Another thing that you'll see with this report as you scroll down, it says winter, but it says month October. This area tends to have the roads shut down by November for people not driving through because it's just impassable. The roads aren't maintained. And in the description, they were talking about there being freezing rain and snow. So the witness likely wrote down that the season was winter just based on conditions, but the month is October. It could have been towards the very end of October as well. So in this report, it looks like the sighting location occurred near what the witness calls the Cascade Mountain viewpoint. I looked on the map and I could not find that particular viewpoint. I did find a area called Cascade Peaks Interpretive Center that seems to fit the description of the area. It also lines up with the rest of the description of where they moved to at the different points during the encounter. So I have a feeling that that is the location, but since they referenced it as Cascade Mountain Viewpoint, but the only thing I could find was the Cascade Peaks Interpretive Center, not quite certain about that. In the report, it says that when they reached the Cascade Mountain Viewpoint location, the brothers got out of the car to stretch their legs and their uncle stayed in the car. Their uncle stayed in the car with a spotting scope and he was looking down into the meadow that's to the northeast. In the report, it's referred to as Bear Meadow, and on Google Maps it shows Bear Meadow being a little bit further over, but Google Maps can be inaccurate sometimes. So we'll use the term that they're using, which is Bear Meadow. And so reading from the report here, it says, "My little brother got out of the car and went to the edge of the valley and let out a 'hello.' I told him to shut up and not do that again. But then, from the back seat, my uncle said that the scream from my brother had spooked something down in the meadow, and it was bolting around a hill in the middle of the valley, going from left to right and out of sight around a small hill about 400 yards away. He described it as large, black." At this point, the witness said that his uncle was too scared to get out of the car, but encouraged the brothers to go up the gated road to see if they could get a better view. They weren't able to see the creature from that point, so they returned to the car. And the report continues to say, "My Uncle Mac was in the car the whole time watching the area where he had spotted it the first time when we left up the road. He said that after the 3 of us rounded the hill and were out of sight, the large Sasquatch walked back into his view, left to right, and proceeded back to where it was before, walking by a small black stump, when that stump then stood up and walked off with it, leading what must have been Young in the opposite direction the 3 of us were going. He said he lost sight of it as they walked north down deeper into Bear Meadow." At this point, they drove down the mountain and parked at a parking lot near Meadow Lake, according to their description. They got out to look around and find where these creatures may have walked. And in the report he says, I walked down the creek bed from the road in a slight gully and followed it for about 100 yards on the left side, staying near the lowest point along a game trail when I came up on a broken tree that had been broken for at least a year, brown needles at the top. I found a large humanoid footprint on the slope next to the tree. The toes were very noticeable, no claws, and were imprinted in the mud. And it says he then proceeded to go back to his car and get the plaster and pour a cast. He covered it up to let it set overnight, and he retrieved it the next day. In the follow-up investigation report, it says, I met with KY on September 27, 2002 and discussed this sighting with him at length, and I had an opportunity to examine the cast that he made near the miner's car. I also spoke with his uncle concerning this incident. The only additional information he could provide was concerning the color of the animal. He described the hair on the animals as being charcoal black. Although he was looking through a spotting scope, he was not able to ascertain additional details about their appearance. So some of the takeaways from this report is that the location that they found this footprint, and based on the description of the weather and the location, the time of year, this really wasn't likely to be a human footprint that they had found. Unfortunately, the BFRO did not provide an image of the cast that they had made, so we kind of can't take a look at that. But in the report for the BFRO investigator, he doesn't dismiss it. He doesn't say, oh, it was clearly a bare double step. It looks like they probably feel that it was a legitimate footprint. Also, it's not odd that they would have plaster in their car because these people, their uncle's a Bigfoot researcher guy, and they were out there probably looking for a location that he had seen a Bigfoot track before. So if you knew that you were going to a place like that, you'd probably have plaster in the car. It just is really a bummer that the image of the cast isn't on the report. Now, as for the really interesting part of this report, is that it looks like this Bigfoot used a diversionary display to draw the attention away from their young, and then the Bigfoot came back, got their young, and went off in the opposite direction. This behavior is really common in birds, also with a lot of animals that tend to get preyed on, but there are instances of primates using this behavior as well. One of the primates that's known for using diversionary displays is columbine monkeys. These are arboreal primates, and what they'll do is if they see a predator coming, they will just grab onto the tree branches, they'll jump, they'll shake, they'll scream. Meanwhile, the mother and the babies, they're going off into another tree far away from the predator. Now, this one, granted, it's not jumping and screaming and stuff, but if you're looking at a Bigfoot, I don't think you really need them to jump and scream to drag your attention away. Just simply them walking away, and then once you're off trying to locate them and they think that you're not following them anymore, coming back, getting the baby, and then going off in the opposite direction, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that that's probably a tactic that they use a lot. So what do you guys think? Do you think that this was a diversionary display? I mean, looking at what we're dealing with here, they said that it looked like it was walking upright and then coming back and getting the young and leaving. The weather was a little bit of freezing rain and snow mixed in, so it's not likely that the footprint they found later in the direction that the Bigfoot had walked would have been someplace a human would be walking around barefoot, especially considering, our feet aren't covered with nice warm hair, and that area is in the blast zone where there's a lot of down trees and debris and stuff that's slowly breaking down. That just sounds like Splinterville. Have any of you ever witnessed a diversionary display being done by a large predatory animal? I know it's common with deer and probably with moose, but I don't know because I've never actually seen a moose in real life. But I know it's common with deer, but what about with bears? And what about with mountain lions? I mean, do they do this where they lure you off one way, come back, grab the young, and then walk off the other way? I know we've got a lot of hunters, outdoors people. Also, I know we've got a lot of people that have actually done boots on the ground research. Have any of you ever seen this kind of tactic being displayed here? Let us know in the comments below, and I'll see you there.